Hey y'all, hey, I'm super stoked to have a special guest on our podcast today. We have none other than Dr. Ashley Uchtman. She's a functional medicine doctor, and we also brought her husband along, Josh, and they've given some great insights on the mindsets that are actually holding you back from being able to lose weight or just heal your overall body. So I'm super excited. Guys, hang on, listen to every bit of this podcast because you're not gonna wanna miss it. These are some of the mindsets I think that are really, really crucial in getting to the root cause of why so many people struggle to lose weight these days. So I'm gonna give you just a brief little introduction about Dr. Ashley so you can get a little bit of her background. Ashley has a passion for natural health for many years. She started her journey by attaining a certification as a holistic health and life coach from the Integrative Institute of Nutrition out of New York. She then felt called to pursue her training education further, obtaining her degree as an advanced complementary alternative health practitioner. We're going to be doing future podcasts with Dr. Ashley in the future, so if you have any recommendations of topics that you'd like to hear or any particular questions, please put them in the show notes below. So guys, like I said, this is going to be a special interview. If any of you have ever struggled to lose weight, you're going to want to listen to this. You can find Dr. Ashley. She runs a practice out of Cape Dorado. It's called Dawn of Life Alternative Health. You can reach her on Facebook as well. You can also reach out to her by email at ashleyyuchtman@gmail.com. So thanks for listening. I hope you really enjoy this podcast. Hey, what's up, you guys? Hey, my name is Jason Dames. I'm with Final Start Fitness. I got some special guests with us today on the show. We got Dr. Ashley Uchtman and her husband, Josh Uchtman. This is going to be a great conversation, guys. We're going to be talking about mindsets that you need to know. Some of the things that are actually holding you guys back from, really the results that you're trying to accomplish, in particular with weight loss. But you can apply these principles probably with just about every area and every facet of your life. So just to kind of give you a heads up, I don't know if you guys remember me doing we did a little podcast with Tyler Schlosser. We talked about his weight loss journey, and he had lost a dramatic amount of weight. He had actually been visiting with Dr. Ashley Uchtman. We had to really uncover some of those underlying issues that they were addressing some of those underlying issues. And so if you guys remember right, we talked about Ashley. And so I thought it'd be great to have her and her husband on the show. They've got a lot of results. I love functional medicine because functional medicine really, the design is really to get at the root cause. And so I think these guys might agree with me a lot, but I think a lot of times our root cause really starts with how we think. And so we're just going to be addressing some of the mindsets that it's going to take to actually get the results that you want. So whether it's losing weight, whether you're just wanting to heal your body, whether you have a debilitating disease or whatever issue it is, it's going to really take the right thinking and the right mindset going into that process. So Dr. Ashley and Josh, I'm really thankful for you guys to jump on the show here with us. So you guys can both share some of your background a little bit and maybe kind of where you were, or like how you kind of got into this industry.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to be here, definitely. So I started out actually pre-med, and I always had a passion for health since I was really young. And also kind of did pre-med as I just wanted a job that was secure. That was honestly part of it. Had nothing to do with health. And then I really had a love and a passion for it, but realized as I got into pre-med that like, wow, this is really, really not what I want to do, but I want to do health. And I struggled with that. So I actually switched to nursing because I thought it's more multifaceted, and I could work in a doctor's office or, the OR, I can really change it around so I can explore a lot of avenues of health. And in doing that, I really decided that that was just a step down of also not what I wanted to do. And so I was really at a dilemma of all of this time in school, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? I need a degree out of this. And so I switched to dietetics, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And so I did that. In my first semester in, I was like, holy cow, this is a joke. And I really didn't agree with anything that it was all, in my opinion, really government-based nutrition, and nobody that knew anybody about health was setting these guidelines. And that didn't sit well with me, and I just quit. I quit school with more than enough credits to have an actual degree, but no degree. And that's when I actually stumbled upon a group of people that were really involved in holistic health and just this environment and all these people. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are my people. And I met a girl who went to a school out of New York called an Integrative Institute of Nutrition. And I really wanted to do it, but it was on my list for like ever. And I kind of waited around, and it was when I met my husband, and he worked in a chiropractic office at that time. And just someone that really encouraged me, was like, you need to do this. And he came from the same background and mindset, which I wasn't used to, being in a relationship with somebody that really cultivated, like, we're on the same page. And so I eventually started that, and it's right when I started, unlike any other schooling, I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And then I graduated from that and met a naturopathic doctor in our town and wanted to work with her, and she had bigger plans and she wanted me to take over her practice. And I very quickly let her know that I was not to her level of education, and she knew that already, and that was a God divine appointment, a whole nother story. But I did another school, about an 18-month program that I finished in 4 months, fast-tracked. I don't recommend that, but I kind of just fell into this practice, total God thing, and it's just been a hit the ground running ever since. And I really absolutely do love it, and it is what I'm supposed to do.
That's awesome. Like, so what is it about functional medicine that really appeals to you? I mean, you know, we're talking about getting at the root causes and stuff.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing, and that was my biggest turnoff with medicine. Is it was like, there's a lot of awesome things with medicine, and I am not downplaying it. We live in the best country in the world when it comes to that. And you know, if I always said, if something major happens to me, don't take me to my office. Right. Take me to the hospital, because there is a time and a place for it. I am not negating it, and doctors are brilliant.
You got that broken arm you want to cover, right?
I'm not going to fix you. But the reality is, it's so widely overused, and they've turned what should be emergency care into everyday care, and it's a big business.
Yes.
And so I have so many people that come into my office that are just loaded with all these pharmaceuticals, and like, they're just exhausted with, I'm clueless. And so the biggest thing for me is, well, I have this and I have that, and I took this supplement, even if it's a natural or pharmaceutical. My question is always, but why? Why? There is a reason for your Hashimoto's, or your fatigue, or you're not sleeping, or your cravings, or, oh, that's just me. No, there's a reason. And everything, I believe, including cancer and autoimmune, I 100% believe can be reversed. And if you find the root cause and start to unravel all of that wholly, and that's what it comes back to, is unraveling it. Just because you find the root cause doesn't mean, oh, we've got the answer, let's do this. It goes back to, it took you 10 years to get here. We literally have to unravel that, and it may not take 10 years, but it's going to take your compliance and your understanding that you created this. Let's walk back through that and get back to that cause and get you healthy. And so that's what I focus on, and I think that's the difference in functional or naturopathic medicine versus traditional conventional medicine. And there's a place for both, but you got to find a place where they meet. That's a medium for meeting people where they're at, you know.
Well, and I love that she said that, because she was talking about it can take a process, and that's partially what we're going to be talking about today, with some of the mindsets and having a little bit long-term thinking, but also to add to the fact, like she was talking about, I always use the analogy of, like, if let's say a car is like has black smoke blowing out of it, and you look at it and like, well, you put a filter onto the muffler and you actually get the smoke to like turn white and it's clear again, you haven't really fixed the root issue, right? You still have underlying problems that's going to cause that engine to have some major problems. And so I like to use that as an analogy, because it's the same thing with our bodies. We've got some of these things that we can mask with different types of, you know, medicines or whatnot, but it's just putting a band-aid on the whole problem, and it's not really addressing the real root causes. And
it fixes everything, but what it does is mask everything. And then it creates other underlying problems, and then you take this, and that's just, it's such a bad road to start to go down. And that's what you have to retrain people's minds. So I love that, of you have to look at everything multifaceted. And that's one part of my practice, is that it is not one thing, like, oh, we do supplements, or you got to work out, or you got to eat this diet. They go in with a sheet, and it's, you know, it's multifaceted.
Yeah, guys, so, I mean, I always talk about like all the lifestyle factors that are really influencing your entire health. You know, so it's the whole word integrated, or functional medicine, is really the fact that, like, I think we've been trained for so long in our medical world, like you have these brain specialists, and then you have a heart specialist, and then you have a lung specialist, and then you have a GI specialist. And when in reality, they're all interconnected and they're all influencing one another, right? So our gut health is going to affect our brain health, right? Or vice versa, or whatever. So that's the whole goal, is to really take all these lifestyle factors. I would talk about nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and toxins. You know, so we need to take a look at those lifestyle factors that are influencing our overall health, and how can we start building habits into our life to be able to help create a healthy lifestyle. So I'm really excited about it. I would love for you to share, and she's got kind of like 4 pillars that she operates based off in her practice. So I'd love you to share a little bit about those 4 pillars, and then kind of talk a little bit more about the mindsets.
So when someone leaves my office after a visit, there's a sheet that everybody gets, and I call it the 4 square sheet, or the Sean sheet. So it's supplements, emotional and spiritual, ancillary support or movement, and nutritional. And none of them are an option, and they're all equally important. Some of them outweigh, I would say, a little bit, and I would heavy on the emotion is for me. But there's something in every one of those, and something might be as little as nutritional, might be that they need to drink half their body weight in ounces, and that is it. Because you have to understand and meet people where they're at, and some people just aren't drinking water, so I can't be like, you have to go vegan, because they're never coming back if I do that, you know? And so for me, there's always going to be supplements involved. I'm not heavy on just giving you a pill or supplement for something, because I think that's the medical model. But the reality is, I get a lot of chronic disease. I very rarely get the person that's like, hey, I'm into health and I just want to be healthier. That's like 2% of my clientele. My clientele have been to Mayo Clinic, WashU, MD Anderson. I mean, they come in with binders of here's my lab work, and I'm like, and no answers. And I go back to the root cause, and so many times in the first visit, I'm like, I think this is your issue. And they're like in tears, and I'm like, how does the medical model get this so wrong? And like you said, it's a GI specialist or a brain specialist. They don't look at everything else. If there's nothing wrong with the brain or the GI, they're like, oh, you're fine. And so that's the problem. But with the supplements, I just, you know, there are issues that cannot be addressed solely with diet, solely with working out. There's some things we've got to force, like detox, or you need nutrients, or you have parasites, or things like that. So it's a must. And then the next thing I look at is ancillary, so anything movement. And for someone, that could be CrossFit. For someone, that could be yoga. For my elderly, that could be literally dry brushing. So lymphatic movement. It doesn't have to mean you physically moving. We need movement in the body of some sort. So if that's dry brushing, or a massage, or chiropractic, or you know, detox baths, moving things out of the body, and that looks different for everybody. And some people, you know, can't move, they're not really mobile, and working out is not the answer. It would actually set you back further. So I don't always endorse that either.
That's a great point.
And then I get to nutritional, which is always water is a must. I get so many people that just aren't eating fruits and vegetables and water. So we literally start with, I don't even care if it's organic, you aren't even having vegetables. So at this point, if you're going from fast food or all out of a box food, and then you just eat real food, even if it's full of pesticides and all of that, I'm sorry, but you're gonna get better luck with that than nothing. So it's moving in baby steps with that. And then the only time I get super specific in the beginning with diet of you cannot have this or you can't do that is if we have a pretty profound issue, and I know this is a big trigger. Like if we have a huge allergy and inflammation issue, I typically will take people off dairy. It's inflammatory, spikes allergies, all of that. So I'm like, listen, this has got to go. And those are usually the people that is cheese and all day is dairy, you know. So very rarely will I be super strict with diet, because that's the hardest thing for people to overcome. And a lot of times they won't be compliant. And I want to set them up for success, not to come back to me of, how'd you do on this? Well, this, or how'd you do? And they had a failure in every part, so they feel like a failure. So I want half your body weight in ounces, like surely we can conquer that. And they come back with a smile, like I did it, you know? And so it's a process. And then ultimately what we talk about at the end, and is the most important to me, is emotional or spiritual. And what I tell people is, your mind is your most powerful healer or enemy, and you choose. You know, and so we talk heavily on that. I'm a Christian. I know everybody has different faith, but I bring my Bible to work every day, and I've been known to get it out. And we have church, but I'm huge on that. And they go home with at least one thing, if not more, in that department to work in, and I weigh in heavily on that. I don't care if you don't do the supplements and you only do this. This is not an option. You know, I used to think it was about half the battle, and now I honestly think it's upwards of 60 to 80% of the issue is the but I'm telling you, this was an eye-opener for me. I read them the sheet, and it's pretty basic. You stand in front of the mirror in a non-narcissistic way and be able to tell yourself that you love yourself, and then speak some positive affirmations that you wrote or your husband wrote or something. And most women, as I'm writing all their sheet out and doing all my stuff, I look up and they're in full-on tears. And I'm just explaining it, and I'm like, wow, we have a lot of work to do, which is okay. I'm like, if you can't do it without crying, that's fine, but you need to understand why. Okay, I'm not worthy, or I'm this, and then work through that and realize that's so not true. And then there's the forgiveness prayer, which is the hardest one for people, because biblically and scientifically, bitterness and unforgiveness has been proven to manifest as sickness and disease. And one of my favorite books on that is A More Excellent Way by Dr. Henry Wright. Then it's forgive yourself first. Again, we're hard on ourselves. And then forgive the very next person that came to your mind. So not this whole list of like, you got to call this person, but just walking through peeling the layers of the onion. And that's usually one of those I give in the first visit. I keep it pretty basic. And then we get into like God box journaling and stuff. And that's just where you have these bad things that have happened to you, or this, I'm overweight, or this person said this, or bad relationships. So then you walk through, you know, acknowledge it. It happened, okay? Honor it because it taught you something, even if it was a bad situation, and then release it. So honor, acknowledge, and release, and get rid of it, and just understand. And when people do that, it's so freeing. And then I usually tell them, it's not a pretty journal that you sleep under. Don't do that. Burn it. Get rid of it. You released it. And I'm telling you, a lot of people are like, okay, whatever, I'm not doing that. And then when they come back and they've had a few rough days, I'm like, okay, nobody's looking, I'm going to do that stupid worksheet, right? And then they come back and tell me that. And I'm like, they're like, it really worked. I'm like, I know.
Wow, that's
you know?
so awesome.
So that, and I always ask them, how are we doing on that? Well, I forgot. Okay, well, that's part of our, like, you know, this is a partnership. It's not, I'm telling you what to do. We're in this together. I'm going to hold you accountable. And you're only going to get out of this what you put in it. These are my recommendations. You can do whatever you want, but your results will be reflected. And the emotional is the number one. So you have to be ready to conquer that.
I think it's definitely so helpful to write things down. So if you're listening to this podcast, like, go ahead and do what she was talking about. Don't just like theorize it. Oh, that's a great idea. Actually take it home and write some of those thoughts down as well. You know.
Yeah, and we can. I have worksheets on all of that, so maybe he can link it for you guys, like a PDF, and you could print it. They're very helpful. I'd be glad to.
Yeah, I can put it in the show notes below. It'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that.
So that's a great, I think, segue to kind of go really into the meat of what we wanted to talk about. So, like, well, how do you build these consistent habits in your life, and how do you do it? Like, I find people where they're, let's say they're out and about and they're like, I'm gonna do a cheat meal, and that cheat meal turns into like a full day, and then that full day turns into like 3 days, and then finally like, oh, I'm just gonna start back over Monday, right? So this is like what you see a lot. So how do we unpack some of this thinking that's kind of holding them back, you know, over the course of, let's just start with, I mean, Josh had some great insights on this, but what is your thought process on, you know, really helping people get the right thinking from the get-go to start so they can get the right results?
Yeah, I think at the very beginning you were talking about how somebody says, well, how do you get so successful in this? Is then that person is assuming that they can't do it. So it starts with limiting beliefs even before we've talked about anything else. It's what do you ultimately perceive as possible? And I think that's where the thought process will start, and then it's going to lead you to what you truly believe, and then your actions and your habits lead to those results. And we limit ourselves so much in life based off of past experiences and other circumstances that are ultimately a circumstance in one specific moment in time that then you are now allowing to define you for the rest of your life. There's a difference between offense and offended. This just came to me from a sermon. Is offended is a choice. It's a constant choice every day that this person hurt me, so I'm going to live the rest of my life based off that. An offense is one occurrence that happened. So, you know, maybe some of you right now are walking through this cycle. It's because maybe you haven't forgiven that person. Yeah. And you are choosing, and this is where it gets tough, is you are choosing to stay offended where God has not called you to stay in that season. People don't value themselves as much as they ultimately should, and I don't mean that in a sense that's bloating people up, but you know what we believe as Christians is your value is based off the sacrifice given for you. Well, we believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for us. So our self-worth then is now based upon somebody dying on a cross for us.
Yeah.
So that should tell me that I'm worth more than what I think of myself right now. And it's a process to getting renewed in the mind to actually see that happen.
My practice is predominantly women, and I do deal with a lot of men, but I think women more so attack health quicker than men. Men are kind of like, I don't need help till I'm dying a lot of the times. No offense, but that's what
That's
I
about
find.
right.
Yeah, and so like, and even then, it's kind of like, I'm good, you know? But the women really struggle with self-worth, and there's this unworthiness, and so it took me a long time to recognize, like, when they would do this or that, I'm like, why are they doing this? And then a good friend of mine was like, it's unworthiness, and I'm like, duh, you know? And I'm like, that's so true. And they don't have self-worth. So when someone tries to give them something, whether it be knowledge or I want to help you with this or money or just being healthy and deserving of that. And some women, it's just, you know, it starts out as looking good. You know, women media really hurts the woman's mind for this. Is like, there's so much on the media, and I'm like, those women really don't look like that. But that's not what we see. And so they just struggle so much with unworthiness. And then I think too, when it comes healthy, I meet women who don't think they're worthy of being healthy.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm like, oh, it takes this, this, and this, and they're like, oh, but you know, I don't know.
Nobody's gonna love me anyway, so why do I need to put in this time and effort?
Yeah, that is their attention. You know, I've met women like that too, and I didn't realize that was such an issue either. Of their sickness was their identity to which that got them attention. And then I had to unravel. I was like, well, why would you do that? And then I stepped back again and realized that somewhere in their life, you know, they lack love or they lack affection and things like that. So where this is where they get attention, even if it's negative, you know. And so I have to acknowledge it and honor it, but help them to release it.
Yeah, and
you know,
to
so
be able to move forward.
Yeah. So listen, you know, because I have name tags in my office, and when they come in and all I know is all of their diseases before I know their name, I write down, you know, diabetes and Parkinson's and lupus and fibromyalgia, and I hand it to them and I say, listen, put all this on. And they're like, oh my gosh, like, you're labeling me now. And I'm like, when you're ready to take this off, you know, because they live and die by that name. Like, so I have some women who've come in with like their disease name on their shirt, and I'm like, don't ever wear that in here again.
Totally.
You know, you can't, you know, or my anxiety, I cannot stand that. I'm like, it does not define you. It is not your friend. You gotta let it go. And the more you continue to say that, it will never leave you because you're calling it yours. You know, you gotta be able to let it go.
Yeah, you hang on to the belief and so much. You know, I see that all the time. Like, well, the minute you say I can't do something, you are already telling yourself a certain belief, right? Going back to what you were saying, I see it all the time. Well, I can't eat vegetables, or I can't give that up, or I can't. Well, the moment you say I can't, you're just allowing that can't to override like your ability to overcome that.
And you can. You're choosing not to. And I anytime somebody says that, I'm like, okay, you can. And I say that, and I'm like, it's the coaching model of, I'm gonna make you hear what you just said, you know, and make them understand you are choosing this. Nobody else but you. And then they're like, oh man.
That's so
you
true.
know, you have to put it back on them. Like, it ultimately, I am here to coach, guide, and I want you to win. But I cannot do this for you, and the choice is yours. When you walk out of my office, I'm hoping that I've equipped you in the best way I can for you to walk out of here and come back with a win and a good story. And I did really good with this and not so good with this. That's okay. We're gonna do better next time. Not condemning them, but encouraging them, but also being truthful. Speak the truth in love. Like, listen, you've got to be compliant, or we are not going to get this result. You know, they're going to be reflective.
I have a huge, so one of the thoughts that came to my mind when you were talking about women in general, I have a huge burden for women that I do, that are my clients or whatever, and they've had this struggle with their weight loss, like forever, like yo-yo dieting up and down, and they have lost a lot of their self-worth. And I've seen it to where, especially a lot of moms, they're nurturers, and they want to take care of everybody else, and they put themselves last, and they don't, like you said, they don't think they're worthy of it. And a lot of the time, and maybe you have some different perspective on this, but maybe that I could do to help them through this too. But a lot of times I'm just trying to ask them, like, well, what is some of their priorities? Like, if you understand maybe some of their priorities, I was thinking, well, maybe I can turn around and help them to see how it is important to take care of your health, you know, especially from a mom standpoint. If you want to be the best version of yourself,
Yes.
you know, some of these things. But what you said about self-worth, maybe I didn't even really step back far enough before getting there. You know, can you kind of maybe shed some light on?
Yeah, so, and I love the whole taking care of yourself. So if you've ever been on a plane, even without kids, this is the analogy I tell women that drives it home, that they're like, oh man, like it's a total conviction of the flight attendant always tells you if something bad happens and the oxygen mask comes down. And a long time ago, I used to think, well, that's really dumb. Like, why would you do that? You must put yours on first before you assist your child, which so many women would struggle with that. And it's because if you fall out and don't get, you're like, who's going to take care of your kids?
Yeah.
And so I tell them, I'm like, that is the same way in life. If you get to a point where you're bedridden or you're barely functioning or you're exhausted and you can't be the best mom you can be, you're actually choosing in the long run to not be a better mom.
Yeah.
As much as that. And so you have to understand, you have got to take time for yourself. Whether it means you tell your husband or your mom or your mother-in-law, like, if it's an hour a week, we'll start with that. Like, and I don't care if you just drive around and do nothing. You've got to take care of you. You know, and the other thing I find with women in weight is, you know, you talk about the worthiness and things like that, is I really find, and I learned this probably in the last year, that a lot of women's weight is a protection. So then you have to really dig in, and they don't want this. They want the right diet and the right workout. They don't want to talk about that. So then when you say, why are you protecting yourself? And they're like, I don't know what you mean. I'm like, well, some of this weight is not just that you've eaten wrong or you don't work out. Some of this is truly, especially when you see a lot, like the 100 pounds overweight, that's definitely a protection. What are you hiding from? What are you protecting? You have to look at that aspect. And sometimes you've poked something that they're not ready to really deal with, but you have to at least put it on the table of, we're going to do diet and exercise, but just so you know, we will be talking about this. So I want you to, not right now because they didn't expect it, but when you come back, I want you to kind of have an idea of, what do you think triggers this? Does it go back when you were 5? Is it a bad relationship 10 years ago? And let's walk through that, and let's acknowledge it, let's honor it, and let's release it and forgive and walk. And when they let go of that, it's like these peeling the layers of the onion, or these weight off of their chest. And I think that's a lot of what people in the industry of diet and exercise and fitness, they don't even talk about that, other than, oh, you emotionally eat. That's not even at all what I'm talking about, but they don't address that aspect. And it's like, why is there no success in weight loss? And so for some people, that's literally why, you know? And so it's having the worthiness to, that doesn't define me. I'm worth more than that. And whether you're single or married or in a better relationship or whatever the issue is from, is moving on to, I'm worth this. Instead of staying here, work towards this. And if they stay here, so is the weight. And so as you work up to this, the weight falls off, you know? And so I find that to be huge. And I didn't look at it that way either until about a year ago, when I started meeting a lot of those patients. And I was like, wow. And some of it stems back to when they were 5, you know? And it's like,
man, that's so huge right there. Because I mean, again, going back to, like, we could give you the how-tos or whatnot, and people are always like, man, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. But really, in result, we need to step back and take a look at some of this thinking. So my question would be kind of that, and either one of you guys can take this, but how do you start to build some more of that self-worth back in you, so you feel like you are worthy enough and to be able to make those steps to do the right things? I would love to hear your guys' perspective. I have a couple things I think might add into that too, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's
it's a loaded question.
It is.
Maybe throw out what thoughts you have.
Okay, that'd be great. So one of the things I do see a lot, and one of the conversation that we had before coming into this, is Josh had some great different perspectives, so I know some great things are going to come out of this. But one of the things I do see a lot is that you lose self-worth when you know you should, you know what you need to do, and let's say you make a plan to get healthy or something, or you make a decision to do something in your life, and then you start making those like excuses for yourself, to where like the cheat meal thing, like I did the cheat meal and then I turned it into a full weekend, and then it turned into a whole week, and then basically you do that cycle, and then you repeated it again, and then just over and over, and basically in essence subconscious mind is telling yourself that every time you fail, every time you stop doing that and you repeat the cycle again, you're telling yourself, man, I can't do this. My sister said it this way. She's like, it's like a mountain that I can't even get past, because she's done it for so long. She didn't even know where to start or begin, because she's tried and failed so many times, and you've got to where you told yourself, man, it's just too big of a deal. And somewhere along the line you might muster up you might muster it up to try again, and then it just keeps repeating itself. So like, it's like when you know what you should do and then you don't do it, it's building a lack of self-belief in your own self, which really creates, I think, a lack of self-worth too. I don't know if that's
it really comes down to, you know, that easy. And I don't want to define myself by who I think I am. It really comes back to the spiritual aspect and prayer of who does he say that I am, because I can only base what I feel of myself on what I see around me. So what I see on TV, social media, the people around me, and if I start to look at what's around me and start to compare, that's when I will compromise who God says I am. So it really starts with, you know, who do you say I am? He says that, you know, you are my beloved. Just start with that. Yeah. Or I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. Like, he knew all the hairs on your head before you were even formed. That starts to put into perspective the value that was placed upon you for this time in which you're alive. And you know, the enemy, he knows that if he can get your mind away from that, he's going to lead you to a life below what God has given for you.
Yeah.
And when you start to try to achieve something on your own will and you fail, then you label yourself as a failure.
Yeah.
And if you don't constantly realign yourself with who he says you are, you will just keep going down that track.
That's such a good point.
It's, you know, like talking about the cheat days. So you compromise a day, becomes a weekend, a week, and a month. It just becomes your normal. And when that becomes your normal is when you start to settle and start to not really believe a limiting belief that you can achieve something higher than what you've expected. Even with our health, we talked about that. So you know, you're prime health. And he had a great example. He said when he was in high school, and I've had this happen to me, you have your high school coaches or college coaches say, oh, just wait till you're my age, you're going to be like this, this, and this. And he said, no, I'm not. What can I do different? So he sets a level of excellence. But as life goes, as we start to experience things, we categorize them as normal, or that's just who I am, that's my genetics, and you start to allow things that aren't true to dictate your life. So you start to slide down, well, you know, I've always had headaches, so that's just normal. No, that's actually not normal. It's not normal to have headaches all the time. Or, you know, I've always been, you know, 30 to 40 pounds overweight. Well, okay, you've always been that, but that doesn't mean that it has to always be like that.
Right.
There has to be a line in the sand that is telling you, you know, truth is not subjective. Truth is truth. So we got to define it and stay at that course. And that's why these two are such vital for your success. Is they're going to tell you what truth is, and it's not going to line up with what you think right now or what you've experienced. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. But you have to first, trust them enough to know that they know what the heck they're talking about. But they're going to give you the plans to get there, and it can be done. And the fact is, you probably don't feel like it can be. And that's okay, as long as your feelings aren't your masters. And we had talked about that too. So feelings are good indicators, but they're terrible masters. So when you start to allow a certain circumstance to dictate your actions, you're allowing a feeling to then take you places that you don't want to go. Whereas if you understand, okay, if I do a certain thing and it makes me feel a certain way, I'm going to recognize it. You have to recognize it. But you're not going to let that control me. So if somebody comes up and says something mean to me, it creates anger within me, that's okay. I'm just not going to act upon it because that would be foolish.
Right.
And a lot of us are, I'm going to get up to the table and I'm just going to have a few more French fries. It's okay. Or, you know, you're allowing this present moment to dictate the big picture of where you're trying to go.
Yeah. I think another aspect, a little bit different avenue, but the same token of, you know, building upon, especially with women, how do we get them success? How do we break that cycle and that mold? And what I found to be huge in many aspects between health and spiritual and all kinds of things, and I think just life in general, is who you surround yourself with. So I don't know if I'll get the quote exactly right, but it's, you know, you are like the 5 most people that are in your life on a day-to-day basis, whether that means that you talk to them every day or you see them 3 times a week or whatever. And some of that is out of your control because it's your family or the people that live in your house, but understand that you are the most like them. And so, and you can see that in groups of friends. Like you'll see, you know, 5 girls or guys and it's like they're all overweight. And then you see what a lot of people call the mean girls. You know, they're all skinny, pretty, hair done up, and they all hang out. Like, you attract that. So it's like, you know, be that person that even if you don't fit in that group, to try to go be friends with those people. And whether that is from a health aspect of, you know, if you're hanging out with a bunch of friends who don't eat right and don't work out and have a bad self-talk, a negative self-talk, and you go hang out with them, I promise you, you will not break the mold. One of my favorite things that I tell my patients from a spiritual, environmental, physical, all aspect life is you will not get well in the environment you got sick in. The problem is not the food and the addiction. If you go home to a home where it is a happy, uplifting environment and someone who loves you no matter what you look like, and you come home and you're beautiful and speaks life into you and gives you affection, I promise you there's a small percent chance that you're massively overeating or that you're not feeding yourself because there's a love issue there. And so the environment, mentally, physically, everything is massive in the sense of the people that are there, the physical. I mean, if you're drinking bad water and you're drinking, you know, breathing horrible air, all of it plays a role. And so I really encourage people and I'm not saying, you know, ditch all your friends, like you're all overweight, I can't hang out with you anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that. Get them with you, but you've got to have some accountability and like-minded people. Before I met my husband, I was in a cycle of, I was a bartender. I bartended my way all through school, and I don't regret it. I mean, I'm in the church I'm in now because of that and all kinds of things, but the people that I was around with, I promise you, like, my life would be very different because I have the right people around me on a daily basis. And I'm not saying that every person around me is perfect, but now those people that were my group that I was like, oh my gosh, help me, and if they're ordering this, I'm ordering this, or like, oh, they ordered a cheeseburger, I don't have to order the salad. You know, but instead, now, yes, they're still my friends, but I can be the light to them instead of just succumbing to what their culture is, what their lifestyle is I've rose above, but I'm strong enough in what I do to where I don't get sucked back in. And that's also knowing your limits. You know, if you can't go out and eat with everybody and they're eating at an ice cream joint and you can't order the salad, then you don't need to go. And it is what it is. You know, and so just knowing your limits and who's in your life, I think is huge.
That whole environment thing, guys, if you could take that one little nugget right there and apply just that, I think it'll just by default, the environment, you're going to get caught up into whatever you're in. And just even the aspect of what she was talking about with, I think even sometimes with even having a good coach is your friends will allow you to buy into your own excuses if they're also, if you're hanging around those same people. A good coach will help you to see where you're at and help you go beyond that and not really say, hey, this is where you're at, but let's move past that. They're going to encourage you. They're going to help you along. I know my sister said that all along. She's like, Jason, I needed to buy into your belief and buy into you that you're able to be able to show me the direction and the path. But if you're just hanging around people that are similar, like-minded, that are just dealing with the same struggles, they're just going to talk about the struggles that they're in, and really they're just going to buy into your own excuses.
Misery loves company. Yeah, that's where it falls into.
Sorry, I got a little jacked up on that one.
No,
it's true.
Yeah, it is very true, and I think it's the key to success. And I think you talked about coaching. I like that. So that's kind of an avenue into accountability and mentorship. So whatever that looks like to you, I have a mentor, and it is a key part of my success in business and helping my patients. But I think, and she's the one I took over the practice, and she's awesome, Dr. Angie Yates, and she founded the school I went to for naturopathic medicine. But I think that's huge too. So even if they come to you for advice or me for advice, I don't have to be your accountability person, but you have got to have someone who you know will speak the truth in love and be accountability. So is that daily? Is that weekly? Are you keeping a journal and someone? Because that's another thing. If you're just, you know, I remember when I did CrossFit at a gym that they had an online schedule. And so I would always plug in all the days and I'm going to go all these weeks. And that alone was accountability, because the coach would literally be like, hey, are you running late? Like, are you on the way?
Right.
So it wasn't like I could just skip. Because I knew if I skipped, I would get a message of like, we're waiting on you. And I'm like, I haven't even left the house because I'm not coming.
Totally.
You know? So that aspect was, I was like, you know, I never miss. And if I did, I was texting, and it was like, it had to be a good reason.
Yeah.
So that people don't want to be accountable. And when people don't want to be accountable, that also tells me you're not ready to make a change. And so I've fired people or halted them after the first appointment of, I don't think you're ready.
Right.
And I'm not saying that I don't want to help you, and I'm not trying to be mean, but like, and sometimes it's a reverse psychology, because they'll call you back like, I'm going to show you, and that works too.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like quitting smoking. Until you are ready for you, and you're not trying to get skinny for your boyfriend or whatever it might be, it will not work. Because you're not doing, you're not doing it for the right reasons. Like, and the whole, I'm not against looking good or any of that by any means, but you got to factor in the health aspect and not just, I want to look good for this person, or is that how you get attention? You know, if you factor in the healthy part and everything else, I promise you that'll come with it. And then it's not going to matter, and you're going to realize that who you're with or who you're trying to attract, it's not there. That's like one aspect. They're not just looking at that. And that's where natural health and fitness can collide in a good way. But when you get to a lot of people in fitness, it's all about, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and he sent me a lot of great ones of, it's a lot of looking good, but it's like they're the most unhealthy people on the planet. And that's society's stigmatism of, they see someone who's got the perfect body and they're like, oh, they're healthy. And I'm like, in what way?
That's one of the areas I really want to help change in the fitness industry, really is. It's always been about the external. There's so many people that can really look good, but like you said, on the inside, they're dying. They're a mess. And that's what functional medicine, you know, I always say we want to become healthy, and the byproduct of that will be weight loss, you know. And
that's a side effect.
But I also want to go back to that point too, the accountability. I tell people all the time is just show up. I don't even care if you get a crappy workout in, but just the showing up is going to keep you in the habit of the routine, right? So many people think they got to like come in and crush it every time. It's more so just developing the habit over time. But we buy into like, oh, I just don't feel like it or whatnot, and then again that's going to end up translating into more like less self-worth and so forth like that.
Well, that, and too, understanding the season of what your body truly needs. Like, some people, it is not working out 6 days a week.
That's true.
It's, you don't get any sleep, you know. And so that was me for a long time. I was addicted to working out. And you could, when we first started dating,
it's hard for those driven people to do it.
I would, and he works out like crazy, and he loves it. Like, if he doesn't work out, it's like not okay, which is, it's not wrong, but like, I would do CrossFit.
Can be.
I would do CrossFit, and I would leave CrossFit, and they were like, oh, where are you going? I'm like, go to work out with my husband. And then we would work out another hour, and I loved it. But it got to where I was, you know, because it was bartending, so I would work till 3 in the morning, get to bed by maybe 4, and I was up by 8, so I was getting no sleep, but I was like walking in like a zombie, telling me what to do, doing this workout. And I realized, like, at what point I just stopped working out, because I'm like, my body has got to have sleep, because I was robbing my body in an area that was vital. And so that's another thing too, is everybody's like, what's the diet and what's the workout? And I'm like, the diet is drink half your body weight in ounces, and the workout is meditation. And they're like, what? And like, there's like, then they're freaking out, like, you're not the right fit for me, I'm not gonna lose weight. And then they start, and I'm like, it's not, that's not it for everybody. And I'm not saying it's not important, but there's seasons of, you know, I had to go through a season of like, pull back the reins big time, and my body needed rest, and that had to be put on hold, you know. And
so it's such a great point. And you know, that's why we always go back to these other lifestyle factors, because it's like the sleep and the stress, you know. And if you're adding on a lot more exercise onto that, you're driving more hormonal imbalances. Cortisol is going to be high. You're tanking your sex hormones like testosterone and growth hormone, and then you're going to be storing more fat when you don't want to, right?
then you wonder, why am I not getting results?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
actually like actually say to somebody, hey, you need to cut back and sleep a little bit more and rest. It's really hard for them to wrap their mind around, but because everybody in the fitness industry is saying more,
Yes.
burn more calories, do this, you know, and you know, again, it's not just calories in, calories out. It's
Yes.
creating a whole wellness and with your thinking and throughout your entire body, your health in your body.
Probably
Yeah.
the biggest thing too is, you know, when you come in to see them, you know, you're thinking maybe 1 or 2 months I'm going to get this result.
Yeah.
When they're
point.
making your plan, they're thinking a year, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of us get caught up in this instant
Quick
gratification, this instant quick fix, which is what we've been taught
That's a
from our
perfect
very
point.
beginning. Is they're looking at, okay, I'm going to take a step back and look at the next 5 years, and what are we going to do to get you there? And I don't know who said this, but it was, you know, are you willing to invest 10 years of your time knowing at the end of 10 years that you're going to get the result that you want? So say you
Yeah.
want to lose 50 pounds and you don't lose any weight the first 9 years, but that 10th year you do. Like, are you willing at this point to actually do what it takes to get there 10 years from now?
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
perspective you want to have, is this is your lifestyle. This is something that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, which is all good things, but you got to look at it past the month ahead of you and have the wisdom to know that if I have a bad week, a day, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think I learned that my patients have taught me a lot, definitely, in how I have to structure my practice. But when I first went in, you know, I had to start telling people when they call to make an appointment, it's a year to get your life back. And that's without me knowing anything.
Yeah.
So you could be a train wreck and it's going to turn into 3 years, but you need to give me at least a year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like you have to come and see me every single month and this is what we're going to do. It just depends on what your situation might
Right.
be. But, you know, I tell them, like, it took, and a lot of times when I get off the phone with them, they get it and they come in with the expectation of, I am not, like, you might leave and come back the first month and be like, I feel worse. And it's like, you know, my people celebrate when they feel worse now, because I've trained them that if you feel worse because we're doing this, the body is flushing out the bad things. And she's like, I felt really bad. And so it's not like, it's not like they text me like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, this is happening, and they freak out, because I set them up to
Right.
expect that. And I let them know, like, okay, how long have you felt like this?
Yeah.
5 years. Okay, your body was probably creating this for, let's say, 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't realistically expect me to unravel this in 90 days. So I need you to commit to me.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about this before, off the record, you know, when we were talking earlier, I'm sorry. But I need you to commit to me for a year.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, this will not work. And it's not because this doesn't work, what I have, my plan. I promise you it works, because I've seen it from people who walked in at 30 years old in a walker, and now their life has completely changed, and they'll tell you, I changed their life. I didn't change their life.
Yeah.
I
They
gave them the
changed their
tools
life.
to change
Yeah.
their life. And so
Come
I
on.
partnered with
Amen.
them. And so that's the difference. So when people say, oh, that didn't work, I'm sorry, and not being arrogant, but no, you didn't work.
Right.
You didn't commit to what we talked
Yeah.
about. And that's where it comes in. Some people, you have to be blunt and truthful, because they need that. Because the coddling and the soft is not going to get them anything other than,
Yeah.
oh, I went and saw her, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't bother me. And, you know, it can't, or I wouldn't be in practice. And so
Right.
that's a big thing, is letting people know that it is all in your hands,
Mhm.
and you must commit the time. And when you say, look, you know, you're 40, 1 year to unravel what you've done to yourself in 40 years, I think is awesome. I
Right.
think that's like a,
Me-
that's
Great.
short.
I'm with you.
You know, and it's one of those, well, how long do I have to do this? And it's like, well, how long do you want? Okay, so we're going to feel good. That's the
Right.
goal. We're going to look good and we're going to be healthy.
Yeah.
How long do you want to feel like that? Well, rest of my life. Okay, well, there's your answer.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, people underestimate what they can do in like 3 months time, because I think they're used to seeing like these commercials and infomercials, get shredded in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They
Yes.
way underestimate, so they
That
think,
means-
oh, I'm gonna lose all this weight in 6 weeks, but they way underestimate what they can do in a year. Like if you would have developed habits over a course of the year, man, the byproduct of that is you would change.
Yeah.
You would have changed so many things. Your body composition, everything would be not, and including like other areas of your life.
Right.
Yeah, and then they, like, a lot of them at that point are like, there's no going back. And then you don't have to walk with them every step, and then they freak out when every little thing happens. They've kind of got it, and they'll call you like, my goal is for my patients to fire me.
Yeah.
And that's not a doctor's goal most of the time.
Yeah.
My goal is that I have gotten you where you want to be, if not further, and that you call me twice a year when I expect you to detox, because you can't put yourself back together and then just cruise control. You have to stay preventative. And so my goal is for you to fire me and then tell your friends, so your friends can then too be in the same place that you are, and then you can have your group that is living a healthier life and be a light to other people. You know, and so that's my biggest thing, is not to have these people, because I can't handle that patient load. If I carried on everybody and then they were always with me for years, I would be at a point of, okay, I'm not accepting patients ever again. My goal is for you to do what I gave you with the tools and be successful, and then I'm going to fire you. I'm going to kick you out of the nest. You
Get
know?
out of here.
Yeah, exactly. That's my goal. And when I tell them that, they don't look at it as, this is just a business, or you're just a doctor taking my money, or something like that. They look at it as, you want to help me and get rid of me. So you want me to be successful on my own, which you don't hear a lot in the medical model. It's, we get you sucked in and on a drug and you're not going anywhere for life.
Right.
You know, like,
get on 3 more.
Yeah, exactly. You're a product of the system for life, and then you are on that rabbit wheel that you feel like you just can't get out of. And that's not my goal. I feel like, you know, with me is, I want to give you everything and you live life, and that you can just talk about what we did and you don't need me anymore. Because you've learned to be your own advocate and your own researcher, and it's up to you, and you have the best quality of life you can. Because I don't think it matters how long you live. Because if you start dying at 40, who cares if you live to be 100? You know, you want to, one of my favorite studies is like the blue zones, and the, which is, I think, I forget how many areas, 6 or 8 areas in the world of people that live to be the longest. But they don't just live to be the longest, they're all 100 or more, but their rate of morbidity, so the time that they're dying is like a year. You know, and they're like building houses at 99. You know, I'm like, that's, I don't mind to live 100 if I'm feeling like that, but that's why you hear a lot of people say, I don't want to live to be 100. Because they see people in these nursing homes. I mean, we were just in one, and I'm like, holy cow.
Man.
I was like, don't ever, no.
I'm
and
with
so
you,
it's like,
sister.
yeah, it's like, you want a motivator, you know, like kids who get in trouble, they take them like to the jail. I'm like, you want a motivator for healthy people, take them to the nursing home. Holy
I mean,
cow.
think about this for a second. So that blue zone test, it's about certain types of foods and stuff, but it's ultimately about culture.
Community.
You know, environment. So go to the nursing home yesterday. How can somebody respond and thrive and be well in an environment like that? It's you can't.
No.
But what would happen if you took one of those people and put them in that environment? They would probably start responding, because one thing we know is if you're alive, whether you're 1 day old or 100 years old, your body is responding and healing and reacting to what's going on around you until you pass. So that right there is evidence to what you were saying earlier, is just the culture that you surround yourself with. It really does dictate the results that you're going to get as well.
100%.
And I think this would probably be a good segue to kind of finish up with, be this topic of kind of like, what kind of quality of life do you want to have? You know, like, go back to the why, because the why is going to really dictate like why you want to make these changes, why you want to change your thinking. What is it that you really want? What kind of quality of life? You know, like she said, what's common doesn't necessarily make it normal. And so we need to like think about, just because people are aging and they're old and they don't have a good quality of life doesn't mean you don't have to. And the good news is our bodies are so robust. We can really, like, you can heal your body and you can really get a quality of life. You can gain muscle at almost any age.
I would agree.
You can improve your health so dramatically. So if you're older, don't just take this as like, oh, it's just too late. That's another bad mindset. Start with where you're at and say, okay, start thinking about, where do I want to be in the next 5-10 years, you know, and go back to that reason why. What quality of life do you really want to have? I think that's one of my biggest things, if I can inspire people, is to think about like, what type of life do you want to have, and then we can work towards changing it. You guys can add into that.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, and that's what I was talking about again, is like, you know, living to be 100. It's like, who cares if you start dying at 40? So it's like, yeah, I want to live to be 100 or whatever God has planned for me, but the whole time I'm on this earth, I want to have quality of life. I don't want to have the normal stigmatism of, you know, the last 20 years at least, if not more this day and age, is you start limping around and you're in pain every day and you're on all these drugs, and it's just like, this is what life is like. I'm like, I want to feel good. I want to wake up mornings. I see so many patients and they come in and sometimes my jaw is on my desk and I'm like, and they're like 30 and I'm like, what? And then I really, really appreciate my life a lot more, because I don't get up with pain every day, and I don't get up with those kind of things, and I can't stand the whole, oh, you're lucky, or you know, you look at, I'm like, you have no idea what I do in
Right.
order to cultivate this. And like, you know, we take supplements and things like that. And it's just go back to like, you know, a model 50 years ago, eat good vegetables, eat all of this, and you're fine, which was totally true.
Yeah.
But this day and age, we are in a society of, it's toxic, our food has not got the amount of nutrients, you have to supplement.
Yeah.
So we are willing to make the sacrifice. Do I want to swallow a bunch of pills and taste a bunch of nasty stuff? Because most of it doesn't taste good. I'll be real with you. It's good for you, but it goes back to the eat to live, not live to eat. And
Yeah.
so even if it doesn't taste good, it should honestly not matter. Do
Right.
I love things that taste good? Yes. But we do all of that. And we talked about this past week, is, you know, we eat good, I would say 80% of the time.
Yeah.
We are not perfect. Like we do eat bad stuff, but we also take supplements.
Yeah.
And, you know, he loves to work out, and I'm in a season of I love to sleep. And it just goes back to all of that of what does my body need right now? Because I want to feel good when we have children, and I don't want to go back to the, oh, you have kids, so you're a zombie.
Right.
And oh, when you're grandparents, you can barely function. Like, I want to feel good to see my great grandkids and still like be that 90-year-old person that can walk without a walker and that can still drive and just live until the day I die.
Yeah.
You know, not dying until I actually die.
It's funny what you mentioned a minute ago, because I always, it bothers me too when sometimes people are like, man, I can lose weight, but man, I just love to eat too much. You know, like, well, I love to eat too, but it's like, what are you eating?
Yeah, what do you love more? And that I love that you said that, because it's another thing that I tell my patients. They're like, oh, I just can't take that vitamin, it just tastes terrible, or I just can't do that, I can't do it. And I said, well, why? Does it make you feel bad? Just in that set, like, explain it. Let me, I want to understand. And some of it is I gag it back up, or I can't do it. And I'm like, does it make you feel bad? Well, yeah. And I said, is it worse than what you feel on a daily basis? Is taking that worse than your big issue? And I said, if it is, then okay, then don't take it. I would feel like that too. And then they're like, they look at you like, wow, she really just put that in perspective. So that's what I just tell people, is doing this worse than the cancer diagnosis if I have 5 years to live, or worse than I have autoimmune and this is just life?
Yeah.
Which is actually worse, choking down that green juice, or you can't get off the couch? I mean, seriously, it's perspective.
Dr. Major's a phenomenal story. He wrote a book called Cancer Killers, and he wrote something, and he said, nothing tastes as good as being with my family feels like.
Yeah.
Love that.
But nothing positive comes from a negative thought.
That's so true.
So if you want a positive outlook in life, you can't.
That's awesome, dude. Give me some nuts on that.
You can't have a negative look, and really just stop condemning yourself.
Yeah.
Condemning yourself is viewed as negative. That's negative. So you can't have a positive result.
You know, he talked about the negative thinking, and that's a normal human flesh thing. So it's not like, oh, we don't do that. Like, we're above. Like, I don't have a negative thought. You know, just this last weekend when we were flying, let me tell you, that day, like, nothing went right. It didn't. I promise you. I
I thought you guys were perfect.
Yeah, nothing went right. And I was like, holy cow. And I was in my moment, like, annoyed, mad, and you go through all the stages. But the key is, you can't tell somebody you can't think that. But how long do you stay there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm in the airport, I walked through all that. He made the flight, I didn't make the flight. I'm talking everything. I get through security with his boarding pass.
Oh my
Someone
gosh.
got fired.
Somebody got
And so
fired.
you just walk through like, can another thing go wrong today?
Right.
You know? But I just flipped the switch, and I made a post on Facebook about it, and it inspired some people. And it wasn't to look what I did, but it was like, I'm a real person, but listen, I acknowledged it, but then I was like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
This is the devil trying to attack. We're not doing this. And so it's how quickly can you shut it off? You can give it, it's like, are you done throwing your fit? And then it's move on. And sometimes you need that person to look at you and
Right.
listen and be like, okay, are you done?
Yeah.
And move on.
Yeah.
And not be mad at them for saying that, but
Uh-huh.
have that person that's like, are you done yet? You
Yeah.
know? And then I think that's big too, is you can have that thought, but
Yeah.
don't stay there. Don't
Right.
hang out there. You know,
Yeah.
move on each time.
Man.
Because
You
we're all
are
human.
in control of your thoughts.
Yeah, we're all human.
Believe it or not, yeah.
That's
It's not just your genes.
Yeah. No, and genes, I'll say this, like, I have all these one-liners, he keeps triggering me. Genetics load the gun, your diet, lifestyle, mindset, and everything around you pulls the trigger. So you're in control, you know? You're in control. And that's what I tell people, because when I'm like, oh, my mom had it, my dad had it, this, that, I'm like, I don't care about that. That doesn't matter. And then they look at you like, because it's like they're like, I have an excuse to be like, it's going to happen anyway. I'm like, no, you're in control.
That's a perfect spot, I think, to stop. And let's just end with that, guys. You guys are in control.
Yes.
You guys have the power. Don't allow other people to tell you like you can't do something, or don't allow yourself to tell you you can't do something.
Yeah.
You have the power to do it. Let's make these habits, create these habits in your life. You know, sometimes there are underlying issues, and that's why I love working with functional medicine doctors. If you're up in that area, man, call Dr. Ashley up, man. She'll be able to help you with some of those underlying issues that are maybe preventing you from getting some of the results that you want. And that goes back to having some long-term thinking, because you just got to be able to figure some of those out. But with that said, we're going to end the podcast today. We want to thank you guys for jumping on, watching the video. If you did like this information, smash the like button. Please subscribe to our channel. We would love it and be so appreciative of it. I think we're going to try to have these guys back. Maybe dive into some more specifics when it comes to health, maybe some underlying issues that a lot of people are having, and kind of attack it that way, so that way you guys have something to relate to or some good information to take away as well. So we love you guys. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day. Peace.